within, they hold me tight. In the dark, I lose my fight.
Chapter 15. Aimed True. Patricia stood with her arms crossed, watching her husband Derrick and their 13-year-old son Jacob with a quiet smile on her face. The summer sun cast a golden glow across the outdoor shooting range, and the faint smell of gunpowder lingered in the air. Today was a big day. Jacob was finally getting his first chance to shoot a handgun in front of both parents at once. They had agreed to hold off on firearm practice for a while, saying he wasn't quite ready. There had been a string of small misbehaviors at school, enough to make them agree that responsibility had to come before any kind of firepower. But he'd turned it around. Good grades, better attitude, and now, finally, he was ready. Derrick crouched beside Jacob at the firing lane, one hand on his shoulder and the other pointing to the grip of the pistol. "All right, Jacob, finger off the trigger until you're ready. Support the bottom of the grip with your offhand, tight but not tense." Jacob nodded, jaw set in concentration. Patricia couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Her men, she wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. Jacob fired his first round, then another and another. A tight cluster of holes in the paper target made Patricia's heart flutter. He was good. She walked up behind them and leaned a bit closer, eyes narrowing at the grouping. "Derrick," she said with a soft drawl, "have you been taking him shooting before today?" Derrick froze just a second too long. He looked up at her with that slow, sheepish half-smile, the one he wore whenever he knew he was caught but hoped charm would save him. "No, ma'am," he said, dragging the words out like he was telling a tall tale around a campfire. Patricia arched a brow, catching the glisten of sweat forming on his forehead, letting him stew. She chuckled under her breath, shaking her head. We'll talk about that later." Derrick stood and gave her a wink, like he was 10 years old again, getting scolded for stealing cookies. Jacob, blissfully unaware of the silent parental exchange, turned and grinned. "Can I go again, Mom?" Patricia was amused. "Go ahead, baby, but your dad and I are going to have a conversation on the ride home." Derrick coughed into his hand, trying not to laugh. Patricia just rolled her eyes and leaned against the bench, heart full. Family, imperfect, sneaky, and the sweetest damn mess she'd ever known. She could faintly hear Derrick's voice, low and steady, as he leaned in to say something to Jacob. "Hey, we had an agreement," Derrick said in a slight hush, the way a coach might scold with love. "You were going to ease into it, not try to shoot like you're in a competition." Jacob looked up at him, a little sheepish. "Yeah, but I didn't even hit the bullseye like you told me to." Patricia let out a small laugh, shaking her head as she spoke just loud enough for them to hear. "Derrick, just let Jacob shoot how he wants. I already know." Derrick looked back at her with mock defeat, hands raised in surrender. "Yes, ma'am." Jacob beamed, puffed up with just enough pride to make his mother's heart ache in the best way. He stepped back into position, eyes locked on the target with newfound confidence. As long as her son was safe and her husband was right there beside him, that was all Patricia really needed. After warming up at the 10-foot line, Jacob stepped back to the 20-foot line like he'd done it 100 times. He didn't say much, just took a breath, locked in, and started squeezing the trigger. Almost every shot landed near or dead center on the bullseye. Derrick's mouth slowly dropped open. His eyes widened, eyebrows practically lifting off his forehead. He let out a long whistle through his teeth. "I did not know he could do that." Patricia didn't even flinch. She casually pulled out her phone to snap a picture of the target. "I knew you were sneaking off to take him shooting," she said, smirking. "So I took him too. You do know I spend more time with him than you, right?" Derrick turned to her, eyes still wide. "You what?" He stormed over playfully and scooped her up like she weighed nothing. "An arms race, Patricia? You spying on me now?" She laughed, swatting at him lightly. It's not spying when you're being obvious. For a few moments, their good-natured back and forth got a little louder. Mock protests from Derrick, smug smiles from Patricia, and Jacob just grinning as he watched his parents act like teenagers again. Finally, Derrick sighed, setting her down. "Fine," he said, wiping the sweat from his brow with a grin. "It is fair. I'll tell you next time." Patricia kissed him on the cheek. "Next time, we go together. All three of us." Jacob loaded another magazine and called out, "Yeah, but I get to show off again." The two parents looked at each other, then at Jacob, and burst out laughing. But Jacob wasn't laughing. Without saying a word, he calmly stepped back to the 30-foot line, as if he belonged there. Derrick raised an eyebrow but didn't stop him. Then Jacob did something that made both of his parents freeze. He raised the handgun in one hand, closed one eye, and steadied his breathing. Shot after shot rang out, echoing across the range. Every single round landed clean, tight grouping around dead center, nearly perfect. Patricia's jaw dropped slightly. Derrick's arms slowly crossed, eyes wide, unsure if he should be proud, suspicious, or both. They looked at each other, stunned into silence for a moment. Then, at the exact same time, they both said, "Where the hell did that come from?" Jacob holstered the weapon with a small shrug, his voice calm, almost guilty. "I'm not supposed to tell." Derrick took a slow step forward, narrowing his eyes. "Hey, boss. There's only one person I can think of who'd train you like that behind my back." Patricia blinked. "Carla?" Jacob didn't say a word. He just gave a tiny, crooked smile. Derrick's jaw clenched, the air around him suddenly heavier. He didn't answer right away, just exhaled hard through his nose and slowly shook his head. "I should have known," he muttered. That woman never did know where the line was. Patricia gave him a careful look. "It's not like she hurt him. Jacob's safe." "That's not the point," Derrick snapped, more sharply than he intended. "She's not his parent. She doesn't get to take him shooting behind my back like she's some kind of mentor. It's always a drama with her." Patricia rested a hand on his arm. "We'll talk about it. But right now, maybe we just tell Jacob he did well." Derrick looked at his son, really looked, and saw pride in Jacob's eyes. Not arrogance, just a quiet, honest pride. He let out a long breath. "You did good, son. But this conversation's not over." Jacob nodded. "Yes, sir." Patricia gave Derrick a side glance. "We all agree on who gets to train our boy." Derrick grunted. "Yeah, because the next time he pulls off a shot like that, I want to know where he learned it." The hum of the road filled the car as they made their way home, Jacob in the back seat still glowing with pride from the day's success. He'd been unusually quiet since they left the range, though, and finally broke his silence. "Hey, Mom? Dad?" he asked, glancing up from his phone. "Why haven't Grandma Carla or Grandpa David answered my texts lately?" Patricia looked at Derrick, then back through the rearview mirror at Jacob. "Well, baby, your grandma's been busy. You remember she's going to that teaching program now, right? She's got a lot on her plate." Derrick grunted softly but said nothing. "And Grandpa David," Patricia added gently. "Sometimes he doesn't even see his messages. You know how he is. He once took a week to reply to me." Jacob huffed. "It's been days." Patricia gave a reassuring smile. "If he doesn't answer soon, we'll go over and visit. I know you're excited to tell him about your shooting. Grandpa David was always a troublemaker. He'll love hearing about it." Jacob chuckled. "He'd probably ask if I did it blindfolded." Patricia smiled, but part of her had already left the conversation. She still wasn't thrilled about Carla taking Jacob to the range without saying anything, especially not after Derrick had said no. It was disrespectful, and it crossed a boundary. She considered confronting her. Just call her, ask what she was thinking. But then she sighed quietly and looked out at the road. What was the point? Carla never took responsibility. Talking to her was like arguing with a wall, except the wall yelled back. All it would do was spark another fight, more drama, and somehow Patricia would end up being painted as the bad guy. She'd deal with it her way when she was ready. For now, she just looked in the mirror at her son, still scrolling through his messages, hopeful. She reached back and gave his knee a squeeze. "Don't worry, baby, they'll get back to you." Later that night, Derrick buttoned up his uniform in the soft glow of the hallway light, careful not to wake Patricia. His shift started in less than an hour, and the quiet of the evening helped settle his thoughts. Or at least try to. He moved with practiced ease, but his mind wasn't on the job just yet. It lingered on David. Poor bastard. Derrick had always liked David. Quiet, respectful, hard-working. The kind of man who didn't ask for much and rarely made waves. And yet, David was stuck with Carla. Derrick let out a low sigh as he laced his boots. He didn't even know why David stayed, not after everything she'd put him through. Derrick knew about the cheating. Hell, everyone knew, except maybe David. He'd even heard the nickname once, Rags, the kind of name that stuck. A name whispered by men behind closed doors who thought they were being clever. Just something to wipe yourself on and toss aside. It made Derrick's jaw tighten just thinking about it. Not just because of the disrespect, but because David didn't deserve that. And Carla? She wore her chaos like a perfume, drifted into people's lives, made a mess, and walked out with a smile. As he strapped on his belt and stepped out into the night, the cool air hit his face, sharp and bracing. He didn't know how much longer he'd be able to bite his tongue. Not if she kept crossing lines. For now, though, he pushed it all down, focused on the job ahead. But in the back of his mind, one thing was clear. David might be too soft to say it, but Derrick wasn't. And one of these days, Carla was going to hear the truth, whether she wanted to or not. Derrick parked his cruiser just outside the precinct, engine ticking in the cool night air. But something tugged at him, a gut instinct, the kind that always whispered when something didn't sit right. He'd been thinking about David all evening. The silence. He made up his mind. He decided he'd swing by David's place. Maybe just check in. It wouldn't take long. He informed his boss what he was going to do. "Derrick," Captain Reyes said with a firm voice. The captain stood at the door to his office, gesturing him inside with a look that said it wasn't just routine. Derrick followed silently, and Reyes closed the door behind them. The room felt heavier somehow. "Sit," the captain said. "There's something I need to tell you." Derrick's instincts tensed. "What's going on?" Reyes sat behind his desk, hands clasped. He looked at Derrick with something close to pity, but it was guarded, professional. "I know you want to check in on David," he said, "and I need you to understand, you can't." Derrick frowned. "Why not?" Reyes exhaled. "Because David's dead." The words struck like a punch to the chest. Derrick leaned forward, face stiff. "What?" "I didn't want you to hear it this way, but it happened a few days ago," the captain said carefully. "We're treating it as a possible suicide, but there's reasonable doubt. It could be something else." Shock flashed through Derrick like a jolt. David? His mind raced, but one thought came louder than the rest. Why didn't anyone tell us? Reyes seemed to read it on his face. "The family didn't want it out," he continued. "They were very specific. No visitors, no statements, no press. They asked that the department keep it quiet, as a last request from David." Derrick's jaw clenched. "Why?" Reyes hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Because Carla may have had something to do with it. Or, at the very least, they believe she was the final push. They said they didn't need her playing the victim." Derrick felt the room spin slightly. Anger and disbelief tangled in his chest. "You think she drove him to it?" "We don't know for sure," Reyes said. "There's no conclusive evidence. But what we do know is this. You're not to go to the house. They don't want you involved. If anything changes, we'll inform you." Silence settled like a heavy blanket. Derrick rose slowly from his chair, face hard as stone. "So you're telling me, not only is he gone, but I can't even check on the family or pay my respects?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." For a moment, Derrick said nothing. Then he gave a single nod. Understood. But as he stepped out of that office and into the dark corridor, one thought burned brighter than all the rest. If Carla had anything to do with this, she wouldn't be able to hide behind silence forever. Back at home, Jacob tapped out another message to Grandpa David. "Guess what I did today?" He hit send, then stared at the screen, waiting for dots that never came.
Woke to the sound of something gone wrong, a crack in the floor where silence belongs. The house still stands, but the walls lean tight, built on a history buried from light. They smiled like saints with secrets to sell, hiding their sins behind fragile shells. But someone always knows the cost. The weight beneath is never lost. Hold your breath, hold your ground. They'll smile sweet while they let you drown. Truth don't knock, it kicks the door. What was hidden won't hide anymore. You can bury the name, but not the sound of what breaks loose beneath the ground. Chains don't till someone pulls the calm before the storm is full. No one's clean, not even the grave. When the ghosts come back for what you gave, the weight beneath still drags.